Hello, all, and welcome back to Survivor Game Show Network. Tonight, we have another exit interview for Survivor Exile Island. I am one of the hosts, Ian Moorhead, joined by the queen of the question, Denny, and our fifth place finisher, Greg Langstine. Greg, how are you doing?
I guess first point of contention, and I should have corrected you sooner. It's Langstine.
Okay, I was going to say, you never corrected me all season, so I just
I know I didn't. I think that's no one gets it right. So
okay.
It's all right.
I remember us saying that during the cast assessment. We just took a guess.
And just ran with it. Yeah, and I didn't correct anybody. I probably should have, but it's okay. No problem at all. I literally, Ian, I saw you a couple weeks ago, and I probably could have said something. But
I feel like I remember throughout the season, I was never going to bring this up, and now that it's here, I feel like during the season, you were kind of scared of production.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You guys were intimidating. You guys were the survivor gods for the season. It was very intimidating. I felt like if you got on your bad side, like, bad karma would come my way. So
Hey, you never know.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, one thing is for sure, you were the king of the social game throughout the season. You were my original winner pick. And had I stuck with my gut, you would have been, but last second I changed it. I knew you were going to do really well in this game, though. And Ian said the same thing, and so did Morgan. Like, we knew that you were going to be a force to be reckoned with. So awesome job to you for how you did in the game.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun. Going back to like the pre-production stuff, like looking at the cast assessment and everything, it was really fun to see like initial impressions from you all, who I know have been around the block quite a few times. So it was funny to hear just what the impressions were, and then seeing whether or not the gameplay could match it. So
well, let's talk about your pre-merge game a little bit. Early alliance, we saw you with Lilly, Lauren, Simmons, and Alex.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like you were really close with Lauren, more so than the others at first, early on.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least that's how it appeared on the edits. And then she goes to Exile. So do you feel that her going to Exile kind of hindered your relationship in a way because it allowed you that time to get closer with the others?
Yeah, I would say so. Lauren and I picked each other out immediately. We, right after the marooning, we did a tribe meetup where we all did introductions. And Lauren and I kind of immediately messaged each other saying, hey, once this is over, you and I are going to sit down and talk. And we just connected right off the bat. Her going to Exile, I thought there were pros and cons to it, because one, I knew Lauren going to Exile meant that she was going to be getting some kind of information. And it was a test of her loyalty to me to see whether or not she would be truthful with that information once she got back. But you're right, it did also bring me a lot closer to Lilly, Mike, and Alex. It made kind of the group wary of Lauren. So yeah, I did have a good close bond with Lauren initially. Lauren and Lilly, I'm also plagued by terrible alliance names, I realize. Lilly, Lauren, and I had Live, Laugh, Love at the very beginning. But that, was a little bit more of a facade. Lilly correctly identified that she was kind of the fifth member in on that original group of five. So she wanted to branch out with Victoria and everything. So there was a lot of dynamics moving on, and like the very early, for that first vote. Not having Lauren around, I think, made things a little bit easier, just because, as we've seen throughout the game, she tends to complicate some things. So it was nice to kind of just have that group of four. We built trust with the four of us. It kind of alienated Lauren to an extent. So that was an interesting, early first couple days on Phil Tribe.
And I wanted to ask you about that, since you mentioned it. Lauren's antics. Did that make you wary of being so closely aligned with her? Did you want to kind of take a couple steps back and not be associated with her as much, or?
A little bit, yes. I definitely had clocked her early on as being a game player, and I think everyone did. She just kind of oozes that persona. So I knew that I could work really well with her. She and I talked for hours, just one-on-one. So she was a really good strategic sounding board for me throughout the entire game that we played together. And yeah, like, so I knew I couldn't go too far with her, but once other people started being distrustful of her, it made me concerned about how far I could go with her without then potentially becoming collateral damage in an attack on Lauren. So I tried my best to hide my relationship with her. And to an extent, I think we did a pretty good job with that. I don't necessarily know if anyone knew how close we really were. So, I think I was kind of skating on thin ice with Lauren the whole time, but I did enjoy playing the game with her.
Yeah, skipping ahead just briefly to kind of connect Greg and Lauren's relationship to another in the game. I thought that was pretty similar to like the John and Zucker relationship, where, I mean, flip the situations around. If someone from Phil or someone from Alexa or whatever wants to take out Lauren's closest ally, Greg could have been that person. Obviously, Greg had everyone under some kind of spell throughout especially the first like 10 episodes of the season. I mean, it was like, everyone was saying Greg is like my number one or my number two. Even the people that were voted out already were saying that, and you've written their name down. So,
yeah.
At that first swap, Greg, you picked Mackenzie. Did you know that you were going to pick her if she was available? And if so, did it have anything to do with her being on Exile with Lauren?
To be honest, I can't really remember if it had anything to do with her being on Exile with Lauren. There's a chance that I was like, okay, that's an easy connection. And Lauren had previously explained that she knew John and Austin from playing or hosting orgs with them before as well. So once I had already seen that the team was Austin, Lauren, and myself, I was like, okay, Mackenzie could be a good person to then have a group of 3 or 4, something going on with that. I also just got a really good vibe from Mackenzie. She had a very bubbly personality and all of the, the challenges and things like that, where everyone was all present together. So I was just interested to see what playing with her would be like.
All right. Now you are the reason that Lauren found a hidden immunity idol. She wouldn't have done it without you. So I've been wondering this all along, like, how did you really feel about that? Like, were you happy? Were you thinking that she would potentially, like, it was your idol as well?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are you feeling about it?
So I was definitely frustrated that I gave away so much information to her without even asking a question. Like, it had been maybe a week at that point, but Lauren and I had spent hours upon hours talking on the phone. Or talking on Zoom rather. And she actually just started messaging me questions. There was no context. It was like, hey, do you remember what the first word scramble was? And like, do you remember how many puzzle pieces there were? And I was like, here's the answer to everything like this. And I guess I was a little bit gullible in that regard. And then as soon as she was asking me like, okay, who was in the picture? Who's in the puzzle from the second challenge? And I was like, all right, what's going on here? And then she finally spilled. And at that point, I should have probably run back and just try to got the idol on my own. But I was on a Zoom with Lauren. And so I just didn't know if I would be able to pull that off. And honestly, I kind of thought it was okay for Lauren to have the idol, because if people knew she had the idol, it raises her threat level. It doesn't raise mine by me not having one, but at least I was the only one, at least to what I knew, that knew Lauren had the idol. So I had the information. She had the increased threat level. So I was actually kind of okay with it. Did I expect her to ever use it on me? No. Like she could have, but I wouldn't have expected her to do that, because honestly, I don't know if I would have had the guts to ever play an idol on someone else instead of myself. Yeah. But I never had to make that decision, so who knows?
See, I would have said immediately, like, why?
Why? Yeah, that's next time I play. If I ever play another game, that will be a question. If I get a weird, inquiry about puzzle numbers and scramble letters and stuff.
And I think like even just like micro, like just like little things, like if if Lauren starts asking those questions, maybe 5-10 days down the road, like maybe you do ask why. Like your game savviness, especially for someone who's never played, like really begins to develop like mid-game, and like once you hit that merge and enter towards like the post-merge deep game. But yeah, like early on, I mean, that was final 14. I mean, you played for a week so far. You really like barely have your footing. So yeah, I think when Lauren messaged me and said like, gave me the answer, I was like, did you know these? And she was like, no, I got them from Greg. And I'm like, okay, something.
Yeah.
What is Greg doing?
Yeah, the org vet played the rookie pretty hard there. I got played on that one, but you know, she was open with me about when she wanted to play it. We talked about it and everything like that. So I thought it also helped Lauren and I build trust. So I was just like, anything that ever happened in the game, I was always trying to find the positive outcome from it, because there's so many moving parts and pieces going on at any given point that you always have to be thinking about, how can whatever just happened benefit me, even if it's something terrible that you really didn't want to happen. Like there's got to be an angle that you can try to spin to have it work in your favor. And so building trust with Lauren, raising her threat level, kind of using her as a bit of a shield, like that all was fine with me in the moment once I realized that I screwed that one up.
You still, like you said, you knew who had it. At least you knew that. I mean, information is everything. So,
and it definitely made me more attentive. Well, it almost made me more attentive moving forward for when there were future clues and stuff. I was always looking. I was always trying to find it. Yeah, but so yeah.
Now you know.
Now I know.
Also, after that first swap, you said that you wished you were still with Simmons, Alex, and Lilly. So was it safe to say that early on that those were the three core people you wanted to work with, or were you still open to others?
Those at that moment, those were definitely the core that I wanted to stick with. But I mean, the main thing for me is that I didn't have any of them. Like all three of them were on the other side. And from my perspective, I was on the tribe with like the three problematic fills. Like I had Lauren, who, you know, we've kind of covered her already. I had Bill, who I just lied to at the first tribal council, telling him I was going to be voting for Victoria, and then we wound up voting out Will. And then I had Victoria, who I told Bill that I was going to be voted, that we were going to be voting for her. So like, I was like, and I didn't think Bill and Victoria would be wanting to working together in this situation. So I was like, even though we had a 4-3 majority going into it, which I did actually like, I was like, great. Like, I think this is the hardest group of people here to have to navigate this next phase of the game with.
So Mackenzie devises this plan to split votes on you, and she wanted the other votes to go either on her or Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And you half liked that plan. Mm-hmm. You didn't want them going on her or Austin. You wanted them going on Jim. Mm-hmm. So it had to feel good that people want to keep you safe in the game. But definitely, all it would take is one person to flip. So it also had to be a little scary to know that your name was going to be written down. Did you have any fear around that vote?
A little bit. Yeah, that was a tricky vote. Merging together, Lauren, who I was the closest with, just had gotten sent to Exile again. So I'm kind of left with Bill and Victoria, who I don't really know where they sit with each other necessarily or with me. That was a tough one, but honestly, like I had talked with Bill and Victoria, and we had kind of all agreed that we wanted to take it to Rocks too, because we weren't going, or at least we wanted to come off to the original Alexas, that we were going into this strong. And if they wanted to go to, like, it was going to be their decision to go to Rocks, because the three of us were voting together no matter what. And if one of them wanted to flip on any of the other two, so be it. Like, we'll keep you safe and everything like that. And we would have been fine with it. Once then Mackenzie told me that the votes were coming on me, I was fine with it. She wanted me to try to get them on her. Like you mentioned, I told her that there was like, that's just not going to happen. Bill and Victoria had a preference to keep Jim. I knew that I just had to kind of keep them happy, knowing that the votes were coming on me. So I was also then pitching to Bill and Victoria is like, hey, if any of you guys change your vote and they're not actually voting for me, then you could kind of Tyson yourself out of the game by not tying up the vote. And then you become like, you put your vote on a 1, you're the 3, and then the other 2 of us are that 2. So you Tyson and Suri yourself out of the game, 3, 2, 1, and kind of not voting correctly, trying to make a move. I definitely wanted Mackenzie and Austin on the wheel just because there was idle paranoia. Even though I got along with them, I was like, they're clearly the bigger threats of the 3 Alexas there. So I wanted to make them spin the wheel, roll the dice.
See, but you knew like Mackenzie wanted to save you. So it was weird to me that you were just willing to like throw her up on the wheel.
I mean, I only knew her for like 48 hours. And she and I connected very quickly. Like, she's a very interesting person. You know, we just chatted for a long time. So like, I definitely liked her. It was more of not knowing whether or not I could really trust her that she would want to work with me long term. But, you know, after this vote, then it became clear, which is weird because I didn't keep her safe. But after that, we had formed a really close bond. But that one was really tricky. And I also didn't want to be seen as the flipper to the old Phils. Like I think everyone kind of had that same mentality. It's that like, if you show some tribe loyalty and some, you know, loyalty in general, then that, and you kind of luck out on the wheel, then you're in good favor with you're not making, I don't know, you're not making like a bad move there. You're not like losing any favor with people.
I mean, it definitely worked for you.
Yeah. In hindsight, it definitely worked for me. No, I know. And I would have loved to have Bill play this game a little bit longer. He was a really great guy.
So yeah, like I said, literally everyone in the game wanted to work with you at this point. And I mean, we even heard people like on the opposite tribe mentioning your name and just wanting to work with you eventually. After the time challenge, which you came so close to winning, just 3 seconds off.
Yeah.
Insane. They send you to Exile, which I'm sitting there. You couldn't see me, obviously, but I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why would they send Greg to Exile? I was blown away by that. And it just
you and me both, Denny.
I mean, literally everyone wanted to work with you. That's why. So it really speaks to just your overall presence, your social game. I mean, some of these people hadn't even worked with you yet, just wanted to. So then we come to that second swap, and you're on the intern tribe with Jim, Austin, and Lilly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up going to a joint tribal. And how were you feeling going into that joint tribal? Were you feeling like at risk at that time? Because there was the 4 of you, but then Lily's taken out of the equation because she's on Exile.
Mm-hmm.
How were you feeling? Like that would have been, no one was looking at it going, we all want to work with this guy. Like maybe we should take him out.
Yeah, I was incredibly nervous because I think well, honestly, from the time we swapped until that vote, like I should have gone home at every single one of those votes in my mind. I thought that I just had the biggest risk. I thought like Bill should have flipped probably at that first vote. I think I should not have gone to Exile Island. I was shocked. I was like on a farewell tour with Victoria, like that whole day being like, it's you're going to Exile and I'm going home. Like good luck the rest of the game. And it just wound up the opposite, which confused me. But then Lauren and I are down looking at the original tribes. We're down 2-5. Looking at the swap tribes, we're up 4-3 with Jim and Austin. So like we just tried to play that angle that we wanted to stick with Jim and Austin. And Connor had made himself a target pretty obviously in the pre-merge. Really, really great guy. Had a lot of good conversations with him too in the short time that we were playing the game together. But Lauren and I didn't really have to do much, which made me worried. I was like, this seems so easy that they're not coming after us. And the whole half hour, an hour before tribal, like all those 5 original Alexas are all chatting together. And that's when Lauren and I were debating whether or not she plays her idol. I was like, Lauren, like, you don't have to play her idol because you're not going to vote for you. It wouldn't make sense for them to vote for you because they suspect you have an idol. Like, it should be me. I'm going home. That's why I think in my voting confession, I was like, Connor, it's you or me, because that would have been, I think, the smarter choice for them. But we kind of used there's still so many Alexas left in the game. Only Gaby had gone home at that point. So I think they were kind of itching to get rid of each other, and we used that to our advantage, Lauren and I.
So Connor goes,
yep.
And you make the merge. So that had to be a good feeling. And now you're linked back up with your people.
Yes.
People you had been wanting to work with.
Yeah.
We see you back in the Zoom with those people, your glam squad.
Oh man.
So excited to get back with these people, and then you don't vote with them.
Yeah, that was messy. That vote was definitely very messy. That was about not trying to stand out too much and not trying to make the fills we're all working together obvious, although we didn't talk about that. We just didn't work together and then kind of wrapped up the pieces a few votes later. But I did have, like, it was a long Easter weekend. I think other people have mentioned that too. So there was just days of like nothing but, I guess, strategizing, but there was nothing to go on because we hadn't even played the immunity challenge yet. So everyone's just like, and we don't know if Exile Island is still in play or not. We don't know if someone's going to be safe. We just don't know how anything is working at this point. So everyone's name was out there, but it ultimately landed on Jim and Alex as the main two that people were like wanting to go after. And as you saw, there was enough people who didn't want Alex to go home, kind of the original fills, and I think some of the Alexas as well. And then Andrew was coming out there swinging already, saying, John and Lauren. So it seemed kind of like John was the one who kind of took over that vote and was like, all right, fine, we got to get rid of Andrew, and which I was okay with for multiple different reasons, even though I actually thought I could have seen myself working really well with Andrew. But I had only really recently met him, so I was kind of willing to let him go because I'd even considered flipping, like trying to get all of the fills and Andrew to vote together to get out one of the Alexas, because Andrew seemed like he was on the bottom of that Alexa totem pole. So like he could maybe flip and work with us. He already had a close bond with Lilly and Alex. So that vote was crazy. But once it settled on Andrew, like if I pushed it, I was worried that it might push back onto me. So I was kind of fine to let it go.
I understand you voting for Andrew. What I don't understand is you not telling Lilly and Alex about it. I think up until this point, you played a flawless game. I think this was your first mistake.
Yeah.
Is not telling them, because it just planted seeds of doubt. Like Lilly was clearly upset. Alex said that he had been sweating, thinking that, it could be him going. So like, why let him be tortured like that? Like, why not just tell them? Because we knew Lilly wasn't going to vote for Andrew, but she was really close with you. I think if you just explained it, like she wasn't going to write his name down, but I think she would have understood a little bit more than just blindsiding her.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That was definitely my first big blunder for my game. Literally right leading up to that tribal council, I had a conversation with Lilly and I like point blank lied straight to her face. And afterwards I was just like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. Like that was terrible. Like I did not like that. I agree. Yeah, I should have told them. I think I was just caught up in the paranoia.
So I have a question about Alex specifically. So there was never a point in the game, and again, I'm jumping ahead briefly, but there was never a point in the game where Lilly was like, maybe we should vote Greg, or like that she was actually going to, until she did. Mm-hmm. But Alex, I want to say from the first time you guys voted John out and on, was like, let's vote Greg. Let's vote Greg. Let's vote Greg. And it didn't happen until Final Five. But do you feel that this is where that kind of started working in his head, or do you think no matter what that was going to happen?
It's okay. So it's funny you say that. So very, very early, like literally the first couple of days when we were all kind of figuring out who we wanted to work with, Lauren mentioned to me that Alex told her that he thought I was very smart. And that was his first impression. So then I kind of immediately clocked Alex as like, oh man, like he's already on to me. Like, I don't like this, but kind of just like fit in easy with the group. So like Alex was a bit of a blind spot for me that I kind of, I don't know. I didn't think that he was playing a great game, and I didn't think he had a lot of great connections with people at the merge outside of the glam team, outside of like the Phils. So I didn't think it really mattered at the time, which was, a bad call. And I didn't see Alex being someone that would be able to rally the numbers against me. And I could talk about like the glam long-term stuff, but I think we'll probably get into that. Definitely, like looking back on my game, there's very clear errors that I made. Being maybe a little bit too trusting is one of them.
Well, like Denny said, I think this is the first one, and this was day 20. So
yeah, something like that.
You're doing pretty well so far.
All right. So after the Zucker vote, you said that the next vote was crucial and you really wanted to go to the end with glam.
Mm-hmm.
You also said you were in a great spot in the game because you took Andrew out, which brought Lilly closer to you. You said you took Zucker out, which maybe, your words, brought Simmons closer to you.
Yeah.
You said Lauren trusted you still. Mackenzie wanted to work with you. Jim wanted to work with you. So, and you said you were hoping that Alex and Mike Simmons were still in this with you. So those were the two that you were kind of iffy about. You weren't sure that they were in with you. You said all the other people, you didn't mention John, but all those other people wanted to work with you. So why not stick with the people you're not sure about? Like, did you think in that moment, like, maybe I should try to get one of these guys out instead of Mackenzie?
So no. So in terms of getting out Alex or Mike that early, no, I didn't think about that at that point. I did want to keep them safe because in my mind, I was like, I thought that they would be votes to keep me around if it ever came down to it, which a little like did come in handy at the Lauren vote. But I wanted to try to build back with them because, like I mentioned, we talked about earlier in the game before the first swap that if we all made it to the merge together, it'd be great if we could kind of hide that we were a tight four. And unintentionally, we did that kind of by all voting, like by blindsiding each other and telling each other last minute what the vote was going to be for the Zucker vote. And then, Mike and Alex were upset about that but at that point, Alex would have gone home otherwise. So it was very dysfunctional. And I tried to then make that dysfunction work for me. No, you're right though. Like I was a little bit too trusting of them and clearly probably should have taken a shot at them earlier. But the other people like Lauren, Mackenzie, like they all said in their exit interviews that they didn't want to take me that much further either. Like they were all, like, I think at some point, like everyone was kind of coming after me. And like, as I'm sitting here and having watched a couple of the episodes and talked and, watched the exit interviews and stuff, like, I don't know if it would have been, I'm trying to figure out like what my combination would have been to get to the end. And I think it would have involved a couple more either idols or immunity challenge wins for me. Like, I don't think I could have gone purely on like my social game.
Yeah, I just wondered because, the Mackenzie vote was really strange to me because there were votes like all over the place.
Yeah. That was a wild
random ones. Lauren voted for Jim.
Yep.
Jim voted for John. Even if you had voted Alex, like it wouldn't have been enough. Mackenzie still would have went. But I just wondered, like, had you thought of aligning with trying to get Lauren and Mackenzie and
Yeah.
Jim and Austin to maybe all put their votes on Alex, just because you said you had Mackenzie, you had Lauren, like you could say, you know, watching the episodes now, oh, well, they were saying my name, but at the time you said I have these people. So I just wondered if you had thought of trying to take out Alex at that point.
Definitely not taking out Alex at that point, but I did like I was working with Mackenzie and Lauren, and here's the thing. So like that vote, you're right, was wild. That was another one for the first like 3 merge votes. It was always mayhem. Like no one knew what was going to happen, and everyone was also afraid of potential tie votes with the game changers rule for tie votes, that a tie vote would automatically go to Rocks. Like you knew that if you were splitting votes, you were more susceptible. And like we knew that John still had some idols in his pocket, that tie votes were definitely in play. So if we could get people to kind of throw their votes out, thinking that they were in on the plan, then we could do what we wanted to do. My actually initial like hope and plan for that round was splitting the vote between John and Austin, because I wanted John to flush the idol and I wanted Austin to go. I'd been going after Austin since I made him spin the wheel back at the Final 14 tribal. And Austin was just kind of like, he always stuck around and like we kind of worked together here and there, but he would never say anything to me. You know, we'd be in these big group calls and he'd be silent. And then we'd have one-on-one conversations and we'd have, you know, just like little personal chats here and there, but it was nothing really ever strong in the game. So I really wanted Austin out. Plus, I also knew Austin had a lot of really strong connections with Lauren, with John, definitely with Mackenzie, and then with Simmons, first of all, because I knew that they had kind of an out of game relationship. So I was very worried about Austin from early on. Me trying to get him out there was then also my test to Mackenzie to see if she was willing to be more loyal to me than him. And she and I came up with this roadmap. Like she was very worried because obviously her name was getting thrown out there. And she had caused chaos for the last 2 rounds with Andrew and Zucker vote. And so she had told me, she was like, Greg, I'm going to go along with your plan. Like, I need to sit back. I need to cool down. Whatever you want to do, we'll do it. And like, to be honest, I hadn't controlled. I mean, I don't really think I controlled the vote really at all. I was in on every vote. I knew where everyone's vote was going to go for every single tribal council that I was still in the game for, but I didn't really control any of that. And so I tried to make that vote one that I would control. And once then I heard, and Mackenzie and I laid out a roadmap of like who goes out this round, next round, the next round, the next round. Final 4 that we had talked about was going to be Mackenzie, me, Jim, and Lilly. And then like immediately after that, I hear from Simmons that she is flipping it and she wants to take out Alex or Lilly. And I was like, all right, well then it's Mackenzie. She's not playing game with me. If she's not willing to cut someone who threatens me in my game, then I can't trust her, because she's willing to put her own game on the line for Austin. So I was like, cool, then I'm fine losing Mackenzie here. And that was totally my reasoning for that. Otherwise, I did try to have it not go on Mackenzie, but she kind of.
What's the catalyst behind that vote?
Behind going for Mackenzie?
Yeah.
I probably would have to give some credit to Simmons on that one, because he reached out to me and said, hey, Greg, I know you're close with Mackenzie. He was definitely not close with Mackenzie at that point, but had said, hey, can you message her and say that, hey, Simmons really wants to work with you. He's interested in changing things up. So I did that. And that got Mackenzie to trust Simmons enough to potentially go after Alex or Lilly. Meanwhile, Simmons immediately comes back and runs to tells Glam like what's going on. And we knew that we could take advantage of John's frustration with Mackenzie for blindsiding him with the Zucker vote to actually get her out. And if our goal at that point, once I heard Mackenzie wasn't willing to kind of prove her loyalty to me, I knew that Glam was who I wanted to try to run as far into the game with as I could. And that meant all we had to do was get out an Alexa. John was willing to get out an Alexa. See you later, Mackenzie.
Switch from one Final 4 to the other.
Yeah. And I had Lilly in both of them. Lilly was with me all the time, but I also knew that Mac and Lilly were kind of butting heads a little bit.
What are you looking for?
So moving ahead, John wins the memory challenge, and then it's either you or Lauren going. So you guys write each other's names down. You survive that vote. Lauren goes home.
Mhm.
And John goes out the vote right after, and then you see they're battling it out for a chance to get back in the game. John wins. What
Mhm.
I want to know is if Lauren had won and come back into the game, would you have considered working with her again?
I would have considered it, yes. Truth be told, I kind of like I did kind of want John to come back because I thought he'd be easier to just send right back out the revolving door. I also was worried that having just received Lauren's advantage, her safety without power advantage that she willed to me after getting voted out, that she would come back and maybe have an expectation that I would kind of strategize with her on how to use it. Where in my mind, I was like, no, I don't really want to do that. Like, this is mine now. Thank you. I voted you out for a reason. I definitely would have considered working with Lauren. I had a better chance of working with Lauren than with John, but I don't think I saw either of them in the end game with me. Plus, I was a little peeved with both John and Lauren when how they went out, because they both went out with this fanfare of like, get Greg out, like end the win now. I was like, kind of like, screw you guys, like you lost, like just take it. But Lauren was like, you rock, win this, which was really nice. I was like, that means a lot. Like, I thank you for letting me know you want me to win this. I think I already knew that, and now everyone else knows that. So it kind of sucked getting the target painted even bigger on my back at those two votes.
I like, and she did mean that like wholeheartedly when
I think so too. Yeah.
But like,
not the time, Lauren.
I say like that's not going to benefit Greg in any way.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, again, just another interesting comment from Lauren. But yeah, in typical SGSN fashion, like they made that fanfare when they get out, like get fucked when you come back, like you're gonna get fucked and get right out of the game again. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
So, speaking of the safety without power, I wanted to know, when you watched the episode, were you surprised hearing that if you hadn't used it or used it on someone else, that they were planning on voting you out?
I wasn't surprised because Lilly did tip me off, and that may have even been in the episode, but Lilly did tip me off. She was like, you got to use it on yourself. Like, you will go home if you don't. For literally until Jim's exit interview for the last few months, I've been thinking like I should have played it on Alex, sent him and his idol away, and then convinced Jim and Lilly to vote out Simmons. But Jim just completely debunked that, and he said he would have gotten me out. So I think I definitely had to do it. Like it was the right play for me, I guess. And then in hopes of me continuing just to win challenges, but I won 2 challenges the entire season, so I'm not a comp beast by any means.
So you
Flip
and
cup
Austin,
beast, maybe.
you already mentioned, were going after each other for quite a while, and then he happens to win immunity. So that had to be gut wrenching. And I mean, did you think right then, I'm done?
Pretty much, yes. Austin was my, like, not even like a real nemesis, but he was kind of like my fake nemesis in the game, because I wanted to get him, like I said, I wanted to get him voted out for so long, and he just wouldn't go away. I couldn't, like, there was never any effort alongside me to get out Austin. So then of course he's like the foil to me making it further, although it's kind of now, I think that as long, if I didn't win that challenge, I probably was going to be going home. Simmons made it seem like there was a chance that he would have sent Austin out at that one anyway, but yeah, no, it would have been me. So I needed to win that, and I was close. I was kind of close, but that
was my next question for you. If Austin wouldn't have won, would you think that you were going to the Final Four? But you just said no. Because I'm like,
I mean, I probably would have thought so. I probably would have been a little bit more confident that I was like, oh yeah, we got this.
All right. Well, I have a few more questions for you at the end, but right now we're going to throw it over to Ian, who has questions from the cast for you.
Yeah, one more thing I just wanted to mention before the questions is like the Greg versus Austin storyline is like kind of beautiful if you look at it from like they had confessionals against each other and they made the edit all season and like nothing ever happens. Like out of the 3 games that SGSN has run, 2 minis and a long game, like you and Austin are the peak of social players that we've had play these games. I mean, it's hard to play a social game in a Zoom format and and employ some strategy, and it's great, I think, from a viewer's perspective, like the war between you two that eventually capped off at Final 5. But
yeah, it was fun. And like I said, like Austin and I never really fully got together in the game, but we always got along. Like he and I were always drinking White Claws throughout the game. Like the first time, and he may kill me for saying this, but like the first time I ever talked with Austin, like, and I'm very much was in the camp of like, all right, there's some dude bros playing this game right now. And Austin was kind of one of those people. And the first time I talked with him at Swap Phil, like he's like stopping a song that he's listening to on Spotify, and it was show tunes. It was Defying Gravity from Wicked. I was like, is he playing me because he knows I'm gay and probably like show tunes, or is he also like show tunes? And so then like there's a lot of like, it made me realize there's a lot of layers to people. Like no one's ever what you first expect them to be. Everyone surprised me like throughout the game. So like Austin we had a lot of fun, but like we were definitely gunning for each other kind of behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, we're going to move into questions from our cast. Once again, we had some scheduling issues and conflicts and just people being busy, which is part of real life. It's kind of portrayal of the game because life's just going on the whole fucking time. So we only have questions from our Castaways. First question is from John. And I don't think you have an answer to this, but John's question is, why are you so damn charming?
Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer to that. I just like, I went into the game having this be my first experience, not really knowing a lot of people who like Survivor to begin with, of like, cool, this is a nice opportunity to just like meet people who are like me, who are like just Survivor nerds, who are willing to nerd out enough that we're going to play this long ass game for 39 days and like vote each other out and like spend way more time than any of us ever expected actually playing it. So I don't know. I really was being genuine with all the relationships that I built. I've made a lot of friends through this game in the cast, on the production side. I stay in contact with people literally on a weekly basis for like, I would say easily most of the cast. So I just had a really great time meeting everyone and was just being myself.
And our next questions are from Mackenzie. First one, a little less serious, but she wants to know Olivia Rodrigo or Joshua Benson.
Olivia Rodrigo. She's killing it right now.
That was backed by Gaby Mallo from the cast as well. She also said Olivia Rodrigo.
It's true.
And Mackenzie's actual question is, was there a point in the game when you would have actually considered going to the end with me, or were you just schmoozing me the whole time?
Well, I would say that I think Mackenzie and I were schmoozing each other the whole time. And we had a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, no, I did consider going to the end with Mackenzie, and it was at the vote that she went home. She couldn't help herself from being messy. And I was like, at every point in the game, I was trying to cut chaos as much as I could. Like Will seemed like a chaotic player, cut him. Connor, cut him. Andrew was becoming a little chaotic. So once Mackenzie wasn't going to be on board with me, I wasn't going to take her far, but I did very highly consider it. I think she kind of screwed that one up.
And her last question is, knowing that you were perceived as a super smart, charming, and strategic player, if you were to play real Survivor, what would you do to avoid being typecast as a strategic genius / threat?
One, I really don't. I appreciate the sentiment. I really don't think I was that much of a strategic genius because like I said, I didn't really run I didn't have control over any of the votes. I think the one vote that I really had an influence on was Lauren going home instead of me going home that round. So I appreciate that. I also think that if I'm starving and laying out in like the sun and doing manual labor for all hours of the day, I'm not going to be the same person as I was being very well fed, sleeping in a bed. What would I do? I would definitely, I think people picked me up as a bit of a threat after that second challenge when I did really well on the puzzle. So I would probably try to tone down like any kind of like mental strength and challenges, because a lot of the people who did well on the physical side of challenges, like Simmons, is still in the game, and like he was crushing bottle flips and everything. Like he's perfect. Like he didn't mess up in any of the challenge basically, and he still was able to skate by. I think people were more afraid of social and strategic threats. So I would have tried to like play down, I guess, my awareness of what was going on, playing down, like not competing in any puzzles or anything that would immediately kind of make me stand out. Try to hide a little bit more.
All right. Next question is from McKenna, not a castaway, but a beloved member of our team. First question is, who would be in your final three out of Glam, and which member would be just shy of the finals?
I would have wanted to go to the final three with Lilly and Alex, and Simmons was the 4. And I kind of had, so we came up with Glam just because it was the first letters of all of our names. And then probably around the Mackenzie vote, I was like sitting there. I was like, because we had a group chat named like that on Facebook Messenger, and I was looking at Glam right there, and I was like, that's actually the order of how I want things to go. Like G first, I want to win. I wanted Lilly to come next to me. Alex, I wanted him to have 3rd place. And Simmons, I wanted to boot it 4th because he was, in my opinion, the biggest threat of the 4 of us, including me. I thought Simmons, like the fact that he's still in the game is just a huge testament to his gameplay. Definitely kept himself safe with challenge performance, but there's so many votes when he wasn't immune and no one really, his name hasn't been written down. Like he played a great game. So I clocked him for that. So I wanted him out. He was the one I wanted out at 4th, or the first one out of Glam.
Next question from McKenna. Would you have replaced any of that Glam final 3 you just made with Lauren or Mackenzie? If so, who would you swap?
No, they were both really good game players. I think, Lauren had her friends, had her enemies, but I think at the end of the day, she was sitting there at the end after all the craziness that she put everyone through. Like people respect that. And same for Mackenzie. I think if either one of them was able to get to the end, they have a lot of votes, even though I think in the game, people didn't always connect with them, but I think people would still respect the games that they played. So no, they would have been out.
Yeah.
Like in the final 4 situation with me, Lilly, Jim, and Mackenzie, like Mackenzie's out in that one, I would hope, at 4th, and then me, Jim, and Lilly.
Glam or die. That's basically what I heard.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question comes from Andrew. Was there any point in the game that you thought, wow, these jabronis are really going to let me get to the end, or were you humble the entire time?
I thought after John went out, I was like, oh, because Alex and Mike flipping the vote at 6 onto Jim instead of Austin, that took me for a loop a little bit. And I couldn't fight it because I was taking myself out of that tribal council. So I wasn't going to be there. But we had been talking about for days, if not like, weeks, that if that was the group that we got to, like Austin's out at 6 because he has a higher chance of winning a challenge than Jim. And then Jim's an easy person to get out at 5, and then we are the final 4. But obviously we were playing different games there, and they played that so well. Like Alex messaged me maybe 5 or 10 minutes before the travel. He was like, hey, I know you're not going to be there, but we're letting you know, like, we're actually going to vote out Jim instead. And I was like, oh shit, like Jim is part of my plans to go a little bit further. For like a brief moment, I was like, am I actually going to do this? And then so with like the 7-6 votes, like winning the challenge, and having the safety that powered guaranteed final five, I was like, oh man, like I think I'm okay here. And then obviously was not.
Simmons asked, looking back, do you think you had a better chance getting to the finals with Mackenzie, Lauren, and John without
no. I mean, I think if that was the final four, I would have had a better chance of moving beyond that final four. But I don't think there's any kind of scenario where the four of us are the ones working together that far. I mean, something would have had to have been very different starting at the merge. But like everyone knew that John and Lauren knew each other, and though they made it seem like they were gunning for each other, it was fake. Like everyone knew that they were working closer together than people expected. Lauren, yeah, I don't know. Like that's a really tricky that would be a chaotic, messy group of people to be sitting there at the final four, and I just don't think that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that final four on paper, I think you win the game.
I think so too.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Mike's question is, do you think you would have had a better chance? Yes,
but like there's just no way to get there.
Yeah.
It really wouldn't have worked out. We would have turned on each other probably like 7-6-5. Like that was never going to be the final four.
Yeah. And then his more humorous question is, on average, how many hours or minutes of sleep do you get per night?
A lot actually. I probably sit up until like 1 or 2 o'clock most nights, because there's always someone, namely Lauren, who was always up late, and she and I would just talk forever, and Andrew too, actually, when he was around. But I would go to bed like at 2, wake up at 8 or 9. So I actually got a decent amount of sleep. I also started like talking with people if it was a weekday, like 3 o'clock. Like my morning, like my meetings were like morning loaded. So by the afternoon, I had a little bit of freedom. And so that's when I could pick up talking with Jim when he got off work earlier than most people. And like Mackenzie was self-employed. So like I was able to talk with her whenever, pretty much any hour of the day. So it was just kind of like I was making myself available to people whenever they were available, because I really wanted everyone to think that they were good with me, which worked.
It did work.
To a point.
All right, moving on. Next questions come from Austin. First question is, what do you believe was your biggest splash in the game?
I guess I'm thinking of like splash is kind of like the initial splash, the initial moment. So I'm thinking like maybe honestly the second tribal or the second challenge with the puzzle. I got a lot of those puzzle pieces myself, and then it was a group effort, but I really like zoned in. I was like, I'm not going back to tribal council. Like we have to win this. The second one was probably at the Lauren vote, because that's when I really solidified things with Lilly, Alex, and Mike, because that's when I told them everything I knew about Lauren's game. I knew that it was between the two of us. I knew that there was actually, like, through Lilly, I knew that Alex and Mike were considering taking me out at that vote. And I got on a call with them, and I was like, here's everything I know. I know that Lauren doesn't actually have an idol anymore. She already played it. This is how she found it. We found it together on Phil. I know that she's got the Exile advantage, like spilling my guts. I was like, what do I need to do to prove to these people I'm willing to work with them, and just to keep me around for one more vote, which then kind of worked out within that immediate challenge of like that safety challenge that Alex won to get out John, because if there was any time in between those challenges, or if I had given them any reason to want to vote me out then, like they could have gotten that together. So it was like making that confession of everything I knew about Lauren to get her out kind of immediately put John then on the hot seat for the next vote, which kept me safe until 5.
Yeah. Austin's second question, and I'm interested to hear the answer to this. There are always Survivor players we compare ourselves to. Who is yours? Do you feel like you lived up to that name playing this game?
I mean, the first person that comes to mind is my favorite Survivor player, and that's Suri Fields. I want to beat her. I do love her. But I think I maybe played like a social game like her because she always makes it far, definitely on her strategy. But I think a lot of people also just really like her and enjoy her and get along with her. And she somehow manages to lower her threat level while playing a game, even though she's like iconic. And then honestly, maybe a weird answer, but like Davey from David versus Goliath, because I think people kind of always clocked him as being a good player, but we're happy to keep him around since they really liked him and wanted to work with him. So I did manage in that regard. I wish I had like pulled out a couple more challenge wins, but in Suri fashion, that was just not gonna work out for me.
And then his final question is, if you could be a drink, which drink would you be and why?
Ooh. Watermelon margarita, because I'm fruity and fun. No, I love watermelon margaritas. If it's on a menu, I'm getting it, especially in the summer.
All right. Next question comes from Lilly. Who was your true number one, and did it change throughout the game?
It kind of fluctuated. Lilly was really my number one pretty much the whole time, because even though I trusted Lauren a lot and I worked probably closer together with Lauren than Lilly, obviously Lilly and I were separated for a number of days, but I didn't think I could trust Lauren all the way. I did have that sense that I could do that with Lilly. I actually contemplated Mackenzie kind of right around the swap and that early merge phase. I was like, maybe it's her, but and then it kind of became clear to me. I was like, no, Lily's my girl. I really wanted to go all the way with her. I would have been happy sitting at the final two with her.
It's always who you can trust the most. Doesn't matter who you like. It's just who you can trust.
Yeah, and honestly, that was Lilly, and clearly, like seeing the last couple episodes, my read was right on that, because she did want me to go with her, and she did put in a lot of effort to try to save me at that final 5 vote.
Yeah,
our interests were aligned. Simmons was a big threat, and neither of us wanted him in the game at that point.
Next few questions come from Lauren. Her first one is, what was your favorite challenge?
I mean, the Flip Cup one was pretty sweet. I did like that one. It was just great to actually get the individual win using some skills that I have worked on my entire adult life. So that was pretty good. And the noise, like that like got a hoot out of all of us. That was a fun one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like one of my favorite, just like even just watching the footage back and like seeing like your faces and stuff, like when we introduced challenges, like that one was great. The Jeremy's challenge was another good one.
Mm-hmm.
One, when Morgan was explaining it, and two, when she trolled you guys with the
fake out the spoons and cotton balls
and the spoons, and yeah, it was just watching that back. I laugh every time. It's just
that was great. That was funny to watch.
Lauren's next question is, what was the most meaningful conversation you had with someone in the game? I don't know if this means like personal or strategic wise, but
yeah, that's tough. I mean, there's a lot of conversations in the game. I'll just like take it the strategy route, I guess. Most meaningful. I mean, it was probably a conversation with Lauren, honestly, because I was definitely leaning on her in the early parts of the game to help me figure out like what the heck was going on, like what we were just kind of like what the strategy was in a game like this. Because I've only ever watched Survivor. I've never even done anything similar to playing a game like this. So it was probably something with Lauren where she was kind of showing me the way, kind of being a really good mentor. But like I kind of wanted it to be, and eventually it did become kind of like the mentee kind of takes over and gets the mentor out. Like,
yep.
Using Lauren's words, like slit her throat.
Yeah.
I think she probably meant personal, but like, come on, Lauren, you can't be spilling personal stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can't think of like anything specific, but like we did all form very personal bonds with each other. We're talking to each other nonstop, and that's something I was expecting to make friends through it, so long as I wasn't like one of the first few out, but like I didn't expect to get as close with people as I did. But like then again, like when you're spending just hours upon hours, like Lauren alone in the early parts of the game, like we were talking on a Zoom, like one-on-one with each other, like 3 or 4 hours a day, it felt like. So definitely some conversation that Lauren and I had.
And her final question is, what advice would you give to any first-time player? Great question.
I mean, step one, apply. Like, play the game. If you're like having any hesitations about it, do it. It's way more fun than I even expected, and I kind of came into it thinking it would be fun. What else? Honestly, be yourself, and that's so cliche, but it's really hard, especially in a long game. I think it's maybe a little bit different in a mini, which I haven't done, and I'm interested to try out and see how the strategy differs. But in a long game, like you're living your own. You're not on an island, like secluded from society, on one of the biggest TV shows of all time. Like it's very hard to live 2 different lives when you're going to work, you're hanging out with your friends and your family. I guess maybe not your friends, since it was where everyone was kind of in quarantine, but like you're with your family and you're with your loved ones, and it's the duality of playing 2 different people, like you real you, and like, it's just not possible. So like honestly, like be yourself, trust your instinct, lower your threat level as much as you can, but like strike at the right moment, because I think I kind of came out of the woodwork a little bit too early. Whereas like clearly everyone in the Final Four kind of like nailed it.
Our final question comes from Victoria Fung. Congratulations on playing an amazing game. Were there any aspects or strengths of other people's games that you'd want to borrow?
Definitely, since I didn't win. But I mean, honestly, I would say that throughout the game, I was trying to be analytical of what other people were doing and what was working and not working for people. And then like during the game, I was trying to borrow those, pros and cons of what they were doing to make sure that I wasn't doing that. So like everyone there was the chaos crew that all left the game like before the halfway point. I knew that I was like, cool, like I shouldn't do that. And maybe now in hindsight, I should have been a little bit more chaotic at the end. I was playing very much kind of like a straight game. But I'm trying to think if there's anything specific. I mean, I was really impressed with Lilly's game at this point, because people were underestimating her. And I was like a little bit jealous of that. I was like, but she and I have kind of done the same thing the whole time. Like Lily's also very likable too. Like, what is she doing better that I'm not? So like there's things that I definitely could have picked up more. I would love to have an ounce of Simmons's challenge ability. That would have been nice to pick up a few more of those. But yeah, I mean, honestly, there's things from everyone's game that I could have borrowed to have gotten me further, and I definitely plan to use for future games. So I'm not going to reveal everything.
All right. If you played another game, whether it's another org, a live game, the real Survivor, I love asking this question.
Mm-hmm.
And you could pick one person from this cast to play with, who would it be?
Ooh. Maybe Simmons, honestly, because I think he would be a good meat shield. I think Simmons is great conversation. He was another person that I didn't expect to get along with as well as I do. I think Simmons would be a really good all-around person, because I also think that in the game, in Survivor, he's someone who's seen more of a threat way earlier on than he was in this game. So I think we could work together really well, but I also think he'd be a good shield for me.
See, like the answers always surprise me. I'm gonna keep.
What did you think I was gonna say?
I thought you would say Lilly. I thought Lauren was gonna say you, and she said Andrew. So like,
I thought you would have said Lilly too, but I thought right before you answered it that I think Simmons would be the correct response. as well.
Yeah, and like I would love it if all 16 of us all got to play like real Survivor together. That would be fun. I know the first 4 people I'd be voting out of the game, and it's the 4 people who were still in the game after me. So no, they like I would have a great time playing with any of these people, but I think Simmons might be best for my game.
And then kind of a weird question, but if we did superlatives for the cast,
Oh man.
which superlative do you think you'd get voted for?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I probably sound like egotistical by saying this, but like something like most likable, or I don't know. I was actually shocked and kind of like moved watching the episodes and hearing people's confessionals and separate conversations that I wasn't a part of, kind of speaking highly of me. Like that was obviously very nice. It's like, I don't know, maybe something like that, but like that just sounds very egotistical, which I don't like.
Any answer would kind of sound like that, unless you said like class clown or something like that.
Well, maybe I could get that. Maybe. I think that might go to Ninja Jim though.
All right, give me one word to describe your game.
No. This is always the hardest one. I should have thought about this earlier because I knew it was coming.
Everyone else fucking says that too. They're like, oh, I should have thought of it.
I know, because it's like it's so easy. One word to describe my game. Maybe a little safe. I think like ultimately I played a safe game. I played a very loyal game, and now I'm kind of ruining the rule and giving an explanation for it. But like I kind of played like a very old school style game. Like you stick with the initial group that you make, and you kind of ride that out to the end. Obviously that didn't work for me, so I was too safe, and maybe could have picked up a little bit of the chaos that Mackenzie and Connor left behind.
Well, Greg, you were the Supreme Flip Cup champion.
Extreme Flip Cup.
I'll take Supreme.
And the one person I literally could not wait to friend request as soon as the game was over. I'm like, I kept saying that to the cast, like the production people, I mean, and they're like, why don't you just send the friend request now? And I'm like, no, because I don't want to send all these friend requests out and then people just assume who the cast is, because it hadn't been revealed at that point. So, but dude, I knew as soon as I saw you, I'm like, I have to be friends with him. So that's just the kind of pull that you have on people. Like everyone wanted it, including us on production. Like we're like, we love this guy. So that
the feeling is
person.
Thank you. The feeling was definitely mutual, Denny. Like it was great getting to know you, and like honestly everyone, but you specifically through the game too. Having you be my production caller at the last challenge was so calming, because like that was not my challenge clearly, but like that was really not my challenge. Like balance a million cups with your like shaky sweaty hands, like it just wasn't going to happen, but you really calmed me down. I was close. I was kind of close there at the end. I was literally rolling for my 6th there when Austin was getting his 7th cup in place and counting down. So like I'm glad that I can now call you a friend of mine.
Well, I told them, I'm like, I get Greg. Don't even think you're getting him, because I am. But it was so great watching you play. You played such an amazing game. Thank you for sitting down with us tonight as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for hosting the game, and I'm like really happy to have been a part of it. I think it's something that everyone who plays this can get a really big kick out of. It's like the production team goes above and beyond. Like watching the episodes edited all together at the end is just like, it's icing on the cake. Like playing the game alone would have been really fun, but now that we actually get to watch it all play out, it's great. So like I'm just really thankful for everyone that I met along the way.
All those kind words from Denny, and she picked our first boot Will over you to win the game.
I didn't win either, so it's not like I wouldn't have helped her.
You give and take. I mean, to echo Denny from Morgan and I and all of production, yes, Greg was a joy to watch all season, and so much that he has joined the SGSM production team. Greg has a great mind for the game, and he hopped on board, and it was like we were like a tumbleweed and just picked up Greg, and we just kept rolling. We never stopped. Greg is not only a great player, he's an excellent person, friend, team member. He now heads our social media team. He runs our Instagram page. So yes, it is great to have Greg on board. It was amazing to watch him play during the season. And we are now one episode away from finishing Survivor Exile Island. It is down to Simmons, Lilly, and Alex. We have our finale on Monday, our final recap on Tuesday with McKenna, Alex, and Jeremy. And then we have our exit interviews for our final three all coming up during the week. So it's one more week for Survivor Exile Island. And from me and Morgan and the production team, we hope you enjoy it.